Let me tell y'all something right off the bat. When the world wasn't watching, when the spotlight was on someone else, India made a move so bold, so strategic, so unexpected that it didn't just turn heads, it spun them. And not just in Beijing or in Washington, but all across the globe. They say the smartest players don't talk, they just move. And baby, India moved like a master chess player with one hand behind its back and still knocked the king off the board. Now let me ask you, how many times have people doubted India? How many times have they laughed at its poverty, mocked its chaos, underestimated its willpower? They thought India would stay busy with internal mess, caste issues, language debates, border scuffles. They said India can't even keep its neighbors in check. How could it ever outplay the superpowers? But oh, how wrong they were. See, when you're focused on the wrong story, the real story happens in silence. And that's what India did. In the noise of geopolitics, while the West was running in circles trying to contain fires of its own making, India dropped a move so surgical, so smart, it didn't need to roar. It let the results do the talking. Now listen here. The reason the world is stunned ain't because they didn't know India had potential. It's because they didn't think India had the guts to use it. But guts, oh, India got plenty of that. You gotta understand something. This wasn't a reaction. This wasn't panic. This was preparation meeting opportunity, and when that moment came, India snatched it like it was born for it. They played the long game. And baby, it paid off like a jackpot nobody saw coming. Let me tell you what happened behind the curtains. While America was busy playing world police and China was building debt traps, India was building relationships. Not just deals, relationships. Strategic alliances, supply chain friendships, defense partnerships, space tech collaborations. India wasn't just making friends, it was making moves. They were learning, adapting, mastering, and they did it quietly, with discipline and patience. Because India knows something the world forgot. Power that announces itself is already insecure. But power that builds itself in silence, that's the kind that lasts. You see, India knew it didn't have to match the West missile for missile, dollar for dollar. Nah, they went for the leverage game. They built the brain trust IT, space, engineering, biotech, defense R&D. You think it's a coincidence that Silicon Valley got Indian CEO running the show? That's not luck. That's intentional excellence. They didn't just break into the system. They became the system. And then, when the time was right, they flipped the narrative. Suddenly the world realized, wait a minute, we need India. We need its talent, its trade routes, its market, its military, its morality. And just like that, the tables turned. See, this move wasn't about flexing for the cameras. This was about forcing the world to recalculate its equations. Let's talk military for a second. People thought India was gonna sit back and be a regional power forever. But then came the BrahMos missile partnerships. Then came the Tejas K-1A jets. Then came India saying, we don't need your tech, we'll build our own. And then came exports, not begging for imports, but exporting to the same countries that once refused to share blueprints. Now that's a full circle moment if I ever saw one. You know what else India did? It stopped chasing Western validation. That right there was the move. India said, we ain't gonna play by your script anymore. We're gonna write our own story. And that's exactly what happened. Whether it's rejecting biased global narratives, standing its ground in global forums, or crafting trade policies that benefit Indians first, India stopped asking for a seat at the table and just started building its own damn table. And baby, when you build your own table, you don't have to worry about who's sitting at theirs. Let's talk energy for a minute. While Europe was struggling under fuel shortages and America was scrambling with OPEC, India walked into the energy chessboard like a king. It diversified oil imports, struck deals with nations the West wouldn't even talk to, and guess what? It paid less, secured more, and stabilized the economy. That's not luck. That's negotiation with a backbone. That's strategy with dignity, and don't get me started on space. While NASA and SpaceX were launching billion-dollar rockets, India launched Chandrayaan on a budget smaller than Hollywood sci-fi films. And guess what? It worked. They landed on the moon's south pole while others were just talking, and that moon landing, it wasn't just scientific. It was symbolic. It said, we're not behind, we're just different. And sometimes being different is the biggest advantage of all. The move that stunned the world wasn't just one event. It was a culmination. It was years of learning, decades of setbacks, centuries of endurance, and a new mindset. This is not the India of the 90s that pleaded for loans. This ain't the India of the early 2000s trying to impress the IMF. This is a new beast, a tiger that waited patiently, sharpened its claws, and now it's out of the cage. And oh, when that tiger walks, the whole damn jungle listens. Now I know some folks are out there still doubting, still mocking. They'll say, yeah, but India still has poverty, traffic, bureaucracy. And to them I say, so what? Name me one great nation that didn't have chaos before glory. America had slavery and civil wars. Europe had famines and dictatorships. China had revolutions and purges. But India had all of that and foreign invasions and partition and decades of colonial loot. And still it rose, still it educated millions, still it built a space program, still it runs the world's largest democracy. That ain't a small feat, that's legendary, and let me remind you of something. India didn't rise by copying anyone. It rose by being itself. Diverse, chaotic, colorful, opinionated, soulful. That's the magic. The very things the world mocked are now its strength. Every time they underestimated India, India quietly added another brick to the empire of tomorrow. And now that tomorrow is here, so when the world woke up and saw India lead in tech, space, defense, and diplomacy, all at the same time, they weren't ready, they panicked, they whispered in boardrooms. They wrote think pieces, they scrambled for new foreign policies because they never saw it coming, not like this, not this fast, but that's the thing about transformation. It's slow until it's sudden. It creeps up, then crashes through. Now look around. India is not just participating in the global game. It's redefining the rules. It's the country others now court. It's the voice others now quote. It's the market everyone wants in. And let me tell you why that matters, because this isn't just a victory for India. It's a wake-up call for every underestimated soul out there. Every country, every person who was told you can't, should look at India and say, watch me. You don't need the world's approval to rise. You need purpose, patience, and power, and India's got all three. Look at how it's handling geopolitics. Neutral when it needs to be, assertive when it must, calm when pushed, strong when tested. It didn't rush into alliances. It made the alliances rush to it. The Middle East wants to invest. The West wants trade deals. The East wants collaboration. That's leverage. And baby, in today's world, leverage is power. You want to know what really shocked America and stunned the world. It wasn't just one missile or one tech breakthrough. It was the realization that the very country they wrote off now has the blueprint. The same India they once tried to civilize is now teaching them how to survive in a multipolar world. India's success ain't just numbers on a GDP chart. It's a story of soul, a story of billions rising not through conquest, but through conviction, not through war, but through will, not through exploitation, but through innovation. And let me just say this, India ain't done. This is just the warm-up. The runway is long, the jet is fueled, and the direction is clear. Forward, fast, and fearless. This move that outplayed them all, it's just the beginning of a new playbook. So to everyone out there watching, wondering, doubting, remember this, India ain't playing catch-up anymore. It's leading the race it once wasn't allowed to run in. It's setting the pace, not chasing it. And most of all, it's doing it on its own terms. Now that, my friend, is the real power move, and the world better buckle up. Because India has arrived, and it's not asking for permission. It's taking its place. And it's taking it now. India's rise on the global stage is not the result of some overnight transformation or a reactionary foreign policy shift. It is the culmination of a deeply rooted civilizational confidence that dates back thousands of years, combined with a bold, modern ambition that has matured in the backdrop of relentless adversity. This is not a game of chance that India is playing. It is a long game. A calculated, deliberate, patient march built on historical wisdom and sharpened by modern innovation. What shocked America and stunned the world wasn't just that India had risen, it's how India rose. Not through imitation, not by bending to align with someone else's world order, but by leveraging its own principles, culture, and strategic depth to play a game most global players weren't even aware they were in. You see, in the age of quick fixes, fast alliances, and soundbite diplomacy, India has taken a vastly different route. While Western geopolitics often revolves around rapid interventions, military posturing, and media-driven pressure campaigns, India chose the slower but more sustainable path. It focused inward first, strengthening its institutions, empowering its people, stabilizing its economy, and reawakening its civilizational ethos. It realized that true power doesn't come from how loud you shout in international forums. It comes from how well you hold your ground when others expect you to fold. And that ground India holds is not just territorial. It is philosophical, cultural, and ideological. The foundation of India's long game lies in its ancient identity. It is a civilization that has seen empires rise and fall, invaders come and go, ideologies blossom and then burn out. Through all of that, India survived not by brute strength, but by adaptability and depth. This is the land that gave the world zero, yoga, chess, metallurgy, and complex philosophies before some current superpowers even existed. That knowledge didn't disappear. It went underground during colonization, but it didn't vanish. It was preserved in rituals, in language, in family systems, in rural memory. And now, in the 21st century, it's being reinterpreted for a new kind of warfare, the war of influence, of identity, of narrative, and of global realignment. India's ambition is modern, but not westernized. It isn't about replacing the West. It's about restoring balance to a world order that has been skewed for centuries. That restoration can't happen through dependence. It must be built through self-reliance and original thinking. That's why you're seeing India invest in indigenous weapons systems, build its own digital infrastructure like UPI and Aadhaar, launch moon missions on minimal budgets, and develop renewable energy projects at scale. Every one of these achievements is a message to the world. We'll do it our way, at our pace, on our terms. India refused to follow the script that global powers handed it after independence. The script said stay a developing nation, take loans, follow our model. But India's civilizational memory said otherwise. It said, we've seen power come and go. What we need is sustainability, not speed. That's why the West is now scrambling, because India didn't follow their timeline, yet it still arrived, and not as a client state or a desperate ally, but as an independent force. The checkmate wasn't made with a sudden move. It was made with years of consistency, careful positioning, and an unshakable belief in its own destiny. And part of that belief is India's moral confidence, its sense of dharma. While the Western world operates on shifting alliances and cold pragmatism, India has introduced the idea of principled strategy. It doesn't switch sides based on sanctions or threats. It doesn't collapse under pressure from international media. Whether it was buying oil from Russia when the West wanted isolation, or refusing to vote along predictable lines in the UN, India showed that it cannot be boxed into ideological camps. It's not pro-West or anti-West. It's pro-India. That neutrality is not weakness. It's a powerful form of independence that many other countries are now beginning to admire and emulate. India's posture in the international system reflects a clarity of thought that comes from centuries of surviving chaos. In a world obsessed with short-term wins and quarterly gains, India plays by different rules. Its victories are long-term. It plants seeds today that it knows may not bear fruit for a decade, but when they do, they alter the ecosystem. That's exactly what's happening now. While America was focused on creating global dependencies and China was building physical infrastructure through the Belt and Road Initiative, India was building human infrastructure, educating 1 billion minds, connecting villages with fiber optics, launching health missions, empowering small businesses through technology, and reforming taxation to boost compliance and growth. No flashy headlines, just deep foundational change, and now the roots are showing. The irony is that the very world that once tried to suppress India's identity is now trying to understand it, maybe even copy it. But you can't duplicate something you never respected. The West tried for years to pull India into its narrative, tried to define India through poverty, caste, overpopulation, and corruption. But India quietly redefined itself through opportunity, resilience, spirituality, and strategic brilliance. It stopped answering the world's questions and started asking its own. And when a country does that, it becomes ungovernable by external narratives. That ungovernability is a key reason why India has become the swing state of the global order. Every side wants India's support now, not out of charity, but necessity. Whether it's technology, pharmaceuticals, cybersecurity, space, or even the cultural domain, India has emerged as the essential player that can't be ignored. And this didn't happen because India shouted the loudest. It happened because India proved it belonged, even when it wasn't invited. And now look at the geopolitical chessboard. You'll find that the United States needs India to contain China. Russia wants India to balance Western encroachment. Europe needs India for trade and tech. Africa looks up to India as a development model, and Southeast Asia sees it as a cultural ally. That's not influence, that's centrality, and it wasn't achieved by becoming someone else's pawn. It was achieved by refusing to be one. India's long game also involves mastering the currency of the future narrative. The West built its influence not just on military or economic strength, but through controlling the story. Hollywood, academia, media, international institutions. They all reinforced a single worldview. But now India is challenging that monopoly. Indian narratives are going global. From Bollywood and yoga to Ayurveda and philosophical thought, the West used to export ideology, now India is exporting identity. And that shift is enormous because in the 21st century, whoever owns the narrative owns the future. This narrative shift is also happening in diplomacy. India has become the voice of the global South, not just through speeches, but through action. Vaccine Maitri, development partnerships, educational scholarships, and disaster relief efforts are part of India's soft power that isn't backed by any ideological conditions. That makes it trustworthy. When India shows up, it doesn't bring a lecture. It brings a helping hand, and that approach has more value today than any G7 summit or NATO statement. India's rise also presents a philosophical challenge to the materialism of the West and the authoritarianism of the East. It says there is a third way, a dharmic way, that combines democracy with discipline, spirituality with science, tradition with technology. It's a model that doesn't seek domination but balance. And in a world exhausted by polarization, that's a breath of fresh air. The timing of India's ascent couldn't be more critical. As Western powers deal with economic fatigue, political instability, and cultural confusion, India is presenting a new kind of leadership, one that is youthful yet ancient, assertive yet humble, fast yet rooted. And that duality of being modern and timeless at once is what the world doesn't know how to compete with. You can outspend someone, you can even outfight someone, but how do you outlast someone who thinks in centuries? That's why India's every move now carries more weight than before. When it invests in semiconductor manufacturing, it's not just about chips, it's about strategic autonomy. When it launches a moon mission, it's not just about prestige. It's about proving that discipline and innovation can defy any budget. When it rejects Western hypocrisy on human rights while defending its sovereignty, it's not just about diplomacy. It's about reclaiming dignity. Every step is part of a larger choreography that's been building for decades. And this choreography is synchronized with a mindset that is deeply Indian but globally relevant. It's a mindset that says, we don't want to dominate you, but we won't let you dominate us either. That mindset is unsettling to the old powers because it can't be bought, bullied, or broken. It stands tall not because it has everything figured out, but because it knows where it's going. That kind of clarity, born from cultural memory and modern experience, is what makes India so formidable right now. What America and other powers miscalculated was India's ability to stay focused while being underestimated. They thought the lack of noise meant the lack of direction. They thought disagreements within India meant it lacked unity. They forgot that a civilization that has debated for millennia knows how to survive disagreement. They forgot that India doesn't break from chaos, it grows from it. They forgot that this is a country where contradictions don't cause collapse. They create complexity, and complexity is where India thrives. So while the world raced on a track built by colonial equations, India slowly carved its own road. And now it's not just catching up, it's setting the course. That course doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. It doesn't follow Washington's prescriptions or Beijing's blueprints. It follows something older, deeper, and more enduring. A civilizational instinct sharpened by the fire of modern ambition. That's the real secret behind the checkmate. Not one move, but many. Not one breakthrough, but decades of persistence. Not one victory, but the rise of a nation that never gave up, even when the world stopped believing in it.